jersey with Andre Greipel, the white jersey with Tom Dumoulin. The King of the Mountains jersey, that has not been awarded yet. Today we get the first points in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey. Looks like the flag is almost ready to come in. Team's classification, that is being led by BMC Racing. The flag is in, and it's Europcar, the first to attack.
Try to stop this before midnight.
Looked like Brian Nearlou, who was the rider going off the front. Martin Alminger was certainly there with him and looking to get into the break. Just as we expected when we saw his presence at the head of affairs throughout that neutral zone. Here he is, Alminger. Serge Pals is the rider who was there for NTM Quebecer, the young Belgian who was looking for his opportunity at the front. Martin Alminger back in 2007 when he won the Tour Down Under. Nulo is the rider from Europcar, 25-year-old. He's had 3 stints as a stagiaire for Europcar, which is effectively a short-term apprentice with the team, before they actually signed him up. They had a look at him at the end of 3 seasons before giving him a contract. Took a little while to get convinced. He's now managed to get a spot on the team and get a spot at the Tour.
Okay, the virtual peloton is a bit too far ahead.
There is number 125, Brian Nearlou, in his first attempt at the Tour de France. He did ride the Tour of Spain last year, and unfortunately, he didn't make it all the way through. So he's yet to finish a Grand Tour. He is the rider in that lead group of the least experience. And they are unforgiving roads in the Flemish part of Belgium. They're normally quite rough concrete roads, little gaps that often run up the centre as well, and you have to pay great attention to when you're back in the main peloton. Here's Serge Pals. Well, mission 1 for the season accomplished for NTM Quebecer, and that was getting the invitation to the Tour de France. Serge is aware of what's required to win status in Grand Tours. He managed to win a stage riding for the Cervelo team at the Giro d'Italia back in 2009. And unfortunately for him, though, he didn't go across the finish line in first place. The Italian rider Leonardo Bertagnoli went across the line in first position, but was later disqualified. And Serge Pals was elevated to the winner of the stage a little later on. Number 167 at the back. That is Dan Martin, the Irishman, who has big ambitions on today's stage.
Amazing. It actually is a little bit dangerous sometimes as well, because everybody now has a camera at the side of the road if they've got themselves a smartphone, and the number of people who think that they can put their hands in front of these bike riders to get themselves a very clever selfie. But please don't ever forget, these guys are riding along very often at around about 50 kilometres an hour. If you get hit by 80 kilograms at 50 kilometres an hour, it's going to hurt you. And
along the climb coming up, leave it on.
Well, they've settled in now. I think they're very happy with the fact that they've got this 4-man leading group, but they're still looking at a long way to go, around about 3 hours of racing. Once they start to get down to what I call the bottom part of the course, once they get to that first climb of the Côte de Vuelta, that's when it'll start to get very interesting, because everyone will be fighting to stay towards the front. Those climbs are not seriously difficult climbs in their own right, but they are very narrow, and the descents away from them are narrow, so you want to start them in the first 25 positions if you can. The climb just before the final climb of the day, that comes in at around about 5 kilometres to go, the Côte de Chérave, it's only given a fourth category climb, which means the first rider over the top will only get himself a single point. But it's around about 8%, so if anybody's feeling a little bit frisky at that point of the race, that's an ideal launch pad to try and get clear and get a good clean run at the start of the Mur de Huy, because sometimes the most important thing about the Mur de Huy is the positioning for the start of the climb. As we look here at Alberto Contador, who's finished well on this climb in the past. Finished third once in Flèche Wallonne. Ian Stannard, just a little bit further back in the sky jersey. You might just have noticed the Union flag around his jersey. And the rider just over to the right in the pink helmet there, that's the champion of Portugal, Rui Costa. Costa, no stranger to winning stages in the Tour de France. He won a stage a couple of years ago up to the top of Superbès. There he is. He's ridden well this year. He finished third in the Criterium de Dauphiné, as well as winning the 6th stage. He's in the white jersey. Nervous moments for everybody, but they haven't really began this chase in earnest. I think they were happy once they saw that the breakaway of 4 riders had established itself. But again, as we saw on yesterday's stage, I think the 3 strongest riders in that group are Barta, as we mentioned yesterday, 4 times in that national time trial champion, Martin Elmiger, Serge Pauwels, with a bit of assistance from the French rider from Europcar. Europcar always looking, and they were obviously looking for the early breakaway today, because Thomas Voeckler was right at the front when we came up to the starting line.
Beautiful blue skies now, and the shadows reflecting in the day. Temperature's absolutely perfect. What a contrast to yesterday. The organisers, well, deservedly, are patting themselves on the back after 2 days of racing, because all the journalists are saying what a fantastic Tour de France already. So different, not boring, big bunches racing for the sprint at the end of the day. A real bike race this week.
Well, it's something every day. I think today we know exactly. Today is sort of a mini Flèche Wallonne, as the team manager for the Trek Factory Racing said, and he didn't think that it would be ideal for Fabien Cancellara, but certainly if he was to lose the yellow jersey today, tomorrow is a mini Paris-Roubaix, and certainly I have to say that Fabien Cancellara would be looking for that.
Now, the man on the far side here in the Alpecin colours there, that's Warner and Arganil. I'll tell you, he's a man who's riding high at the moment in the overall situation. 22nd, only 41 seconds off one of the favourites there, which is TJ Van Garderen. He's looking very relaxed right now, and I would say he's feeling pretty pleased with his performance yesterday. First big test.
Big test for him, and also putting himself ahead of all the other French contenders, guys like Pinot, Jean-Christophe Perrault, who missed out as well. As we go now through the small town of Arscott and l'Église de Notre-Dame. Oh, yeah, a little problem there at the back. Looks like there was a problem there. That looked like Rowan Dennis. Little accident. Now he's got his thumbs up, but he's okay. Just one of those, as the referees, it always cracks me up when the referees announce over race radio, un chute sans gravité, a crash without any real graveness. Well, I'll tell you what, if any of the referees have ever fallen off, it hurts at any time you fall down. But Rowan Dennis looks okay. Thumbs up. Okay, well done. The man, let's not forget, who won at the opening day, and of course was the wearer of the yellow jersey yesterday. Rowan Dennis, he's got the yellow number on as well, because his team, with their performances so far, are the leaders of the team competition. It's a beautiful day to be racing through Belgium, Phil. I have to say, I think many of the riders will be quite happy that the weather is like this, and not the wet and grimy conditions that they were led into yesterday.
Well, you see how green it is, and quite frankly, you don't get many days like this in Belgium. When I lived here, the first 6 weeks it rained every day, but today is idyllic. The wind is reported to be rising all day long. It could be crucial as we turn back towards the finish, but I think the hills will have a bigger say. As we now head into Bunsbeek. This is also a Dutch-speaking village now, as we head in towards the Walloon area and leave the Dutch-speaking area. And again, looks like the whole of the population has turned out. Only a small little villages, by the way. These 4 guys, if you're just joining us, got away right from the gun as they did yesterday. Different 4, except one rider's the same. Got number 192 there is Jan Barta. He's been in both breakaways. We're now crossing into Tielmont.
Well, we've got around about 10 kilometres of Flemish-speaking language to go through before we cross the linguistic border. And these guys over here, by the way, are making a quiet protest, because in the early part of this year, the agriculturalists, the farmers of Belgium, were making some protests about a change in the tax regime here in Belgium, which was, they felt, not making it very worthwhile to farm. And instead of actually stopping the races, as we've seen many people stop the races in the past to make protests, this time they decided to use their tractors, the tools of their trade, to make a quiet protest.
Well, I'll tell you what, they've made perfect circles there, and that is not an easy thing to do. 3 minutes, 7 seconds. Sky on the right. Sky so far will be very pleased with their Tour de France. They've got Chris Froome onto day 3. Best of all of the favourites, really. He sits in 10th place. But if you look at all his rivals, Quintana, 1 minute 39, lost to Chris Froome already. Even Alberto Contador's lost 12 seconds. So things, after 2.5 days of racing, going well for Chris. He loved the team selected to be alongside him. Yesterday, the strength of Ian Stannard and of Geraint Thomas was enormously important in keeping him in those horrible conditions right on the sharp end of the race.
As we now look at 72 kilometres ago, around about 20 kilometres now before we get to the first climb, the Côte de Boisseau. And the gap, as you see, it really has all of a sudden now, without paying too much attention to the time gap,
just plummeted.
Yeah, it's just dropped, and that's just because of the general acceleration, the general impetus which is being lifted in the main field.
Yeah. We saw those pictures of poor Adam Hansen. He's going through some pain back there.
Yeah, well, the doctor had warned him, Phil, that it was going to be really tough for 3 or 4 days. But you know, Adam Hansen, when you bear in mind that he's riding his 12th Grand Tour in a row, he really is. He's going to fight to stay through this and stick in here. And I really take my hat off to this guy, because he loves riding his bike.
Here he is, just in our picture again, number 76, Adam Hansen. At least he managed to pick up his food bag. He'll just sit round the back there. He'll come in with the last men today. That's not important. He just wants to get in, beat the time limit. Every day he hopes he'll get that a little bit stronger. He's still got a week before we start the big Pyrenean mountains.
There's lots of movement at the front end of the peloton. Everybody's looking for their position and their place in this pack, and it's a question of forcing your position, holding your position. As you can see, hands coming off the handlebars a little bit. Nobody wants to allow someone else into the line, and obviously Alberto Contador's Tinkoff Saxo team, it could be good for Peter Sagan today. Let's not forget, at the start of the day, Phil, Peter Sagan is in 4th position at 33 seconds, and I have to say that I think both you and I were extremely impressed with the way that Peter Sagan rode in the recent Amgen Tour of California, because he was climbing well and he was doing well in the individual time trials, and I've always said this about Peter Sagan, we don't really know how much he can do for himself as a professional bike rider, because he's still only 24 years of age.
Well, we've just come over to the Chateau de Gier. Boy, this one is in extremely good condition. You could put a bid on this one, Paul.
Well, it's fabulous. This chateau already existed going back to 1130. It's been owned by a succession of families throughout its history, but was seriously renovated in the 15th century. The renovations undertaken by Marguerite de Falloise on behalf of her husband, Johann Olma de Sa.
Well, I wouldn't like the job of cleaning it, but other than that, I would love to live there. That looks absolutely superb. Belgium actually has some unbelievably nice chateaus, particularly in the region of the Walloon area.
So this is also an extremely part of the heritage of Wallonia. Inside there's some extremely good collections of rare furnitures and some very good gold plate work, as well as embroidery, china and tapestries, owned today by the province of Liège.
Well, we've circumnavigated it. It's on the race route today. The riders will be passing through. These 4 leaders, though, are now back to only 1:22, and it's continuing in the reversal here. Martin Elmiger is the 3rd man in line with IAM on his shoulders. He was the rider caught in sight of the finish with Jack Bauer last year. Almost won the day. Gap is closed now. It's only 27 seconds. There's the peloton, and one vehicle looking after these 4 leaders. They've been away since the first kilometre of the race, And it's the big teams who are driving now on a very, very depressing, long, straight road. There's no way they can stay away now. They are beginning the battle once again on day 3 now of the Tour de France to fight for the seconds and to shuffle the leaderboard.
Yeah, they are. It really is quite. There's Lars Boom. He's the rider of 3rd position in that line of Astana riders in the turquoise jersey. Movistar with the M in the middle of their navy blue jerseys, looking after both Alejandro Valverde and the Nairo Quintana. There is Valverde. You just see him popping through there with the Spanish bands around his waist. He won that title this year, formerly a national time trial champion as well. And of course, since the start of this race, we've always seen at the front Tinkoff Saxo. And I think Tinkoff, I haven't seen very much of Peter Sagan, but my gut tells me, Phil, that Peter Sagan could well be looking for a move on this climb. He's actually finished in 12th place in the Flèche Wallonne in the past. He used it as a learning curve as he was trying to figure out which of the one-day classics would suit him the best. And so I think when it comes down to positioning and riding for the possibility of a yellow jersey, watch out for a good ride by Peter Sagan on today's stage.
Well, a little reversal of 31 seconds, but that usually happens when they get this close. They're not rushing at them just yet. They'll wait as they close in on the Côte de Bonneau as we traverse another one of the beautiful chateaux of the region. Go on, give me a guess, Paul. What is it?
Well, this, I reckon, is the chateau of Falais. It goes back to 1044, its history, and before it was transferred to the Beaufort family.
Hey, you're right.
Thank you. Well, it was a medieval castle originally, and it's been changed quite a number of times through the 14th, 16th and 17th centuries, although its real origins go back to the 11th and 12th.
Well, it's been sold on several occasions. Let's hope they keep on renovating it because it is in beautiful condition.
There's more of a
renovated and
warm
brought back to its
up leg
former glory.
activation.
And the peloton probably aren't getting a very good view of that at the moment because it's over in the trees. But these
at
are
the
the 4
moment,
riders
I can't
back down to
decide
29 seconds. They just had a good look now. They've only got out to the cars, but they're seeing the chief referee decided to come back in and keep an eye on them. So it might be misleadingly taken into the fact they're pulling away, but they're not unless you've got 2 seconds advantage. Here's the peloton here. Nobody behind the race. This is the average after 2 hours today. They've averaged 40.3, just over 25 miles an hour.
A week or so ago.
And the average for the whole stage, 42.7. That's the second hour, 42.7. That's a very quick time today. It just puts them slightly behind the expected time of arrival on top of the Puy, but it will get quicker now.
Maybe a day or 2 ago.
Yes, it will. 64 kilometres to go. The top of the next climb of the day is at 50 kilometres to go, and that is the Côte de Bonneau. And this farmhouse that we're looking at down here, by the way, is the farming castle of Bierwaard. And very much in the same structure as most of these big farms were made. This powerful square construction is surrounded by water. It was around about 1200 the manor house of Bierwaard was here in the courtyard, belonged to the Count of Namur. As the leading force, still 24 seconds, that's not really very much at all. They are in the sight of the main field, they're getting closer and closer to lining up for the next climb, the Côte de Bonneau. Another chance to have a quick look at that fortified farm castle. There's plenty of those, in fact there's a lot of them in the Belgian Flanders. Contador's team, little traffic island at the front, squeezing around there. Everyone will start to feel nervous. Some guys will be resigned now to just getting through this stage and will not be thinking in the back of their minds of the stage victory. When you look at the body language at the back end of the main field, you just get an indication that it has been, despite the fact that it looks easy when you're sitting at home watching this on television, there's a lot of riders already just struggling to find that acceleration to come out of the corners, to remain in contact with the peloton. A little bit further forward there, number 194, that's the new German champion, 22 years of age, Emanuel Buchmann.
And now it looks as though they're going to help Jens, not Jens, Fabian Cancellara back onto his bike. What a shame this was. The AG2R rider down there looks like William Bonnet.
Well, Phil, again, this is because of the high risk of people. It sounds as if Tyler Farah was also involved in that accident.
Well, Daryl Impey there has gone onto the side road, and well, my goodness me, the rider down there from FDJ has really taken quite a knock in the face.
It's Daryl Impey there, number 104.
Well, these riders, I think we can see for ourselves, are being reported. And that, in fact, the race is announcing that they are stopping the race because of the two heavy crashes. So we're going to see the peloton held. Now that, it's not unprecedented, but I'm very surprised. Christian Prudhomme, there he is, has said, guys, we're stopping the race. There's two crashes, totally separate, and they are classed as very heavy falls. Well, that is really a great shame. Building up for a big rush at the Côte de Buisseau. And now the race is being utilised. But quite honestly, some of those riders I don't think will be continuing.
Well, it was very difficult to exactly see. It looks as if one rider crashed on his own. It was right up at the front end of the main field when we saw that accident happen. In fact, it was a touch of wheels. When you lose the front wheel like that, it's very difficult to control and recover.
The first rider to go down was definitely a rider from FGJ, and it could have been that one we've seen with the facial injuries. William Bonet apparently is being prepared for the ambulance, and Lawrence Tendam is also down, another name we've seen. The lonely figure of the Maillot Jaune of the Tour de France just riding back up the road here now. He might or might not be aware that the race has been stopped. We're not actually stopping the race, they're calling it a neutralisation, so the riders will be brought back to a steady pace. And in fact, it looks to me as though they've released the race, so they did neutralise it, but nobody's rejoined and we're off again.
Well, they've picked the pace up very, very quickly indeed. That's the race referee. They're trying to get the car out of the way, and Team Sky, as immediately that the race was deneutralised, were right on the offensive.
That's the only thing
I can think for, because we had two crashes, both independent of one another, the referees decided to neutralise the race to bring a sense of common sense, get them all organised again. It wasn't a case of letting those who fell get back up. It was simply bringing common sense into the race, and now we're gone again. Well, Fabien Cancellara, take a look at this. That's a Française de Jeu rider who touched the wheel and went down, and then the riders just ploughed into him one after another at such a high speed as well. That's a very, very heavy fall, and you're right, the white jersey of Tom Dumoulin was standing up on the grass. Now they're announcing again, they're stopping the race again. They're going to try and neutralise the race again. Well, that was actually a replay. That's from the first time they stopped it. But unless they're replaying the Radio Tour announcement, we're now waiting to see it neutralised for a second time.
Well, Phil, we are hearing that Tom Dumoulin, the rider who was the best young rider, has abandoned the race.
Well, that really is... They're going to stop the race at the foot of the climb of the Côte de Buisseau. Well, that's really very, very sad. They are stopping the race, and they're talking of stopping the race at the foot of the first climb. But I'm not sure the riders at the front want this to happen.
Okay, it's not a racing race, so I don't care how fast or how slow I go.
Well, the initial fall was caused by a rider from FGJ touching the wheel of a rider in front, and that started a ricochet effect. And then I don't know what caused the second one. We didn't actually see it happen.
I'm not chasing after myself.
Course is neutralised. Fabien Cancellara continues to ride back. Well, whatever we think about it is very sad indeed, because it was building up to one terrific showdown on these last climbs before the finish line today.
Well, the race radio is now saying they're going to stop the race at the bottom of the Côte de Buisseau, and I'm really not sure why. There's nothing in the rules to say that, but maybe because of the severity of the number of crashes.
They said it was because of 2 heavy falls, and there were certainly a lot of riders down, and these calls have to be made instantly, and communication of course is difficult when you're spread across an open highway like this, but there we are. And the riders are going to have a word with the race referees now, because of course the boys who didn't fall are going to feel pretty upset about this. Here comes the neutralised man who's not neutralised right now. He's just coming back up towards the pack. The race is being stopped just before we start the climb of the Côte de Boisseau.
We're also hearing that Simon Gerrans has abandoned the race, and that is very sad. Simon Gerrans crashed in Liège-Bastogne-Liège in April, had a nasty crash at the start of the year.
Tom Dumoulin has gone, the rider who was riding so well and was placed in 3rd overall in the classification. He's gone. William Bonnet is officially abandoned. Simon Gerrans. And everybody here now a little bit perplexed. As riders rejoin, we'll see the arrival very shortly to Fabian Cancellara.
Okay, so the beat me rider. And
you can see the riders, there's officially an announcement come through now that William Bonnet has gone. That's rather sad. Now, are they moving off again? Because I don't think Cancellara's rejoined yet. Yep, they're announcing we're starting. Simon Gerrans has been announced officially now that he has abandoned the race. That's a big blow to Orica Greenedge. Here's the arrival of Cancellara as well, coming up towards the back of the race now.
Greg Henderson was involved in that crash, the rider in the red jersey, ahead for Fabian Cancellara. He's got a fair amount of his jersey missing.
Well, in fact, Cancellara's now gone off looking for his team car, which will be the #1 car in the line there. And he's discussing his situation. I don't think he feels too well, actually.
Well, bear in mind, Phil, this man is coming back from a very nasty accident at the start of this season, where he injured one of the vertebrae in his back.
The trouble is, this is such a sad outcome for the day. Well, they're still telling us, in fact, they are telling the team managers to ask the riders to respect the rules and do not race until all the riders involved in the crashes that are riding come back to the pack. They're saying it's because they had 2 very large crashes independently, and they took the immediate decision to stop the race, to allow those that can rejoin. But we know at least of 3 riders who have gone to hospital. This is the race director, Christian Prudhomme. His face gives nothing away. He used to be a sports commentator on television before he got his job as race director of the Tour de France.
Well, I don't ever, Phil, remember the race organisation actually neutralising the race because of an accident. I know the riders themselves neutralised the stage a couple of years ago when Sylvain Chavanel went on to win the stage after a massive pile-ups in the descent of the Côte de Stockeux. But to see the race organisation themselves make that call, I'd have to go back through my history books a long way. So race radio now saying that the decision has been made to neutralise the race to the top of the Côte de Boisseau, which is the climb that they're just starting now, and the race will be deneutralised and restarted again once they go over the top of the climb. And that will leave the riders with about 50 kilometres to go down towards the finish. That's the race organisation car right in front there, the red car. Of course, and just a little bit further back there, number 202, Frédéric Brun. Thomas Vogler, 129. He's just sitting at the back end of the race. But we have confirmation that 3 abandoned, Dumoulin, Gerrans, and William Bonnet of FDJ. Very, very nasty high-speed crashes as they were dropping down into the town just on the outskirts before they lined up for the Côte de Boisseau. Michael Matthews, he could have been a chance of a victory this afternoon. You can see by the way he's ripped up, he was obviously also severely involved in that very, very high-speed crash. Just having a look down there. 103. Luke Durbridge. Just looking to see if we can spot any of the other leaders of the race. I'm looking for number 1, Vincenzo Nibali. He was well positioned up to the front end of the main field. Andre Grivko is there.
Okay, 30 minutes to go. Plenty of time.
Just struggling to stay in contact. Bear in mind the race is still neutralised until we get over the top.
Right, in goes Christian Prudhomme, a little wave at the race. They're moved away. The race officially been restarted 50 kilometres from the finish.
Okay,
And
so
we've been neutralised or stopped now for the best part of 20 minutes as the riders now prepare to cover the last 50 kilometres of the race, and they're not going to rush it. This Fabian Cancellara here looks very, very slow indeed.
A lot of riders bearing the sequels of that very nasty crash, high-speed crash, probably in excess of 35 to 45 miles an hour, because they were going slightly downhill, starting to line themselves up for what was going to be the first most important strategic point of today's stage, the Côte de Boisseau. They decided to neutralise the race up to the top of the Côte de Boisseau. There are 3 more climbs on the day, and it begs to ask the question is who's going to be the first rider to start this race again?
Well, the enthusiasm will be there just now, and we know 3 riders have retired, but I think there'll be more names by the end of this day. Daryl Impey, we must presume has got back on his bike, but he looked very, very sore indeed. Cancellara there.
Stannard did a fantastic job yesterday making sure that Chris Froome was looked after in the crosswinds, kept him in the right place, positioned him in the front end of that split. They have picked up the average speed quite a bit. The race is back on, although it doesn't seem to be on completely in earnest. So that's what it looks like from the skies here in Belgium. A bit of a dampener on what was lining itself up to be a pretty exciting finale down towards the finishing line. And it's always very difficult for these riders when they're in full flow like that to get stopped by the race. I've seen no races neutralised in the past because of trains coming by and incidents on the road, but never fully put into neutralisation because of an accident like that.
Well, these 4 riders here, including Greg Henderson on the right, are clearly under pressure straight away. They've all been on the ground and they just cannot lift their pace at all here. This is poor Johan van Summeren, usually a strong workhorse for Team 82R. Had a nasty fall on his back there, his shorts ripped as well. The pressure's gone on again, the race has restarted, so the riders have decided they're going to race this last few kilometres, and it is going to be tough. We've got, first of all, the green jersey point sprint at Havellange. Expect to see Andre Greipel try to get mixed up in that. He's wearing the green jersey today after yesterday's stage win. But the pain of Johan van Summeren riding on his home soil here at Belgium. This is Lawrence Ten Dam, also had a pretty nasty fall as well.
Well, he's obviously on a different machine as well. You can see a lot of these riders have obviously cranked up their bikes quite a bit because he's got no number on his machine, so he has a spare machine from the team car. Greg Henderson also there, looking very ripped up. And you've got to really get yourself concentrated now if they're really going to take the last part of this race quite seriously.
I think they are. I think the attitude's changed again now. And it's going to put an awful lot of riders in trouble. Fabian Cancellara in the all-yellow jersey there was right at the tail end of the race. That wasn't where he was all day. And the long, thin line coming out to the pack means that they're under pressure from the pace being set at the front. Number 109, Simon Yates, caught a glimpse of. Perry Kerman at the break yesterday wants a drink.
Well, that's probably the most important thing to think about, Phil, when you're looking at sport and events at this level. That's Alejandro Valverde towards the front there, thinking about
the black
this
colours.
This is an important day for him. Alejandro Valverde in second position on the road.
Listen, it looks as though it's making looks like it might be the style of Rowan Dennis too, the rider who had the first yellow jersey.
Well, riders are trying to recover there. That looks like Greg van Avermaet coming across the gap there with Alejandro Valverde. We are not too far away now from the sprint point at Havelange. It's around about a kilometre to go to the sprint point in Havelange, which comes at 31.5 kilometres to go.
So we are under 1 kilometre to go now as the sprint begins to regroup here, and they're trying now to get Greipel into position for that green jersey. Peter Sagan is also trying to get on the picture. Now Greipel is in third wheel here as they start to run down towards the line. Greipel is finding his sprint legs again. This could be 20 points for him. As he races up to the line, he'll have to go a little bit. It's coming close, he gets it. And he takes it right on the line there. The rider who was just with him behind there was John Degenkolb himself in second place. Nasser Bouhanni was third. Cav had to go. It looks like he might have gone over there in fifth place.
And Peter Sagan was not too far away either. You can see the gap between the two groups. It looks like it's starting to come all back together, and there will be a general slowing down for that leading group, Phil, once they've gone through the sprint point there. You can see the acceleration coming from the riders from Movistar, but coming across the gap and making the junction at the front was Alejandro Valverde. Have a look at this one more time. Andre Greipel, having won himself the stage yesterday, producing an awful lot of power with the challenge coming in the black jersey on the right-hand side from John Degenkolb.
Yeah, Degenkolb gets the second place. The first 15 riders there get points in that competition. 20 points for the man who won. I think they're now eased back a little bit. It's a short journey across to the Côte d'Aref.
Paul getting himself maximum points, 20 points for Andre Greipel, ahead of John Degenkolb and Nasser Bouhanni, and there is confirmation. 20 points in the back. Coquard in the fourth place, Cavendish being attentive in fifth, Peter Sagan in seventh, Roman Kreuziger up there, and Nicholas Roach inside of the 12th place. So, as they start to get that little bit closer, 27 kilometres to go to the finish, and now they're taking this very, very seriously again. They're all going to try and battle for position now to get themselves as close as they can into a good position, and it looks now as if we're going to have a pretty serious race over this last probably 35 minutes of racing.
Well, there's no doubt now they've got over the crash and they're getting on with the job in hand. As a result, we've lost Tom de Moulin, William Bonnet, Simon Gerrans with a broken wrist, and Kodjachuk of Team Katusha. 4 we know are out, but some of those riders look so badly injured, they seem to be continuing, but tomorrow morning they may not be starting.
Well, that's a special thing, Phil, about the Tour de France. The most important thing, it's in the back of your mind all the time. I've just got to get through today. I've got to try and get to the finish. Nobody wants to abandon the Tour de France. Even if you're severely banged up, any other race on the calendar, you would probably pull off and look for the ambulance or the car to take to the finish. But this is the Tour de France. It's almost, I always like to compare it to an ascent of Mount Everest. You don't want to get up to the final camp before summiting, and you will do everything you can to stay in the Tour.
Well, the sad pictures we saw of the crashes, they will go around the world like wildfire, of course, as the riders now have regrouped and they're racing now. Now we've gone through Havelanga, we're going to get lots of undulations in this region, but the next official climb is the Côte d'Eref, which is 10 kilometers from the summit of that climb as we speak.
But these roads get a little bit narrower once again as we start to get closer to the Côte d'Eref. The final climb before the Mur de Puy, the Côte de Chirav, all of the riders very concerned about that because that's quite a steep little climb at 8% the average gradient. And although they only give the Mur de Puy an 11 or 12% gradient, there are some points in the corners, Phil, which I measure them in at around about 22%.
It gets very steep on the bends. In their teeth, they are pushing this pace on now as fast as they can. Bernardi and Tessato, the workhorses for Tinkoff Saxo, they really are. And never far away. 4th in line at the moment, Alberto Contador. Such a clever rider, Contador.
Yeah, but he'll be thinking about this climber. He realises, having really pulled the rabbit out of the hat yesterday with being in that leading group and getting himself a good advantage over Nairo Quintana, today could be another good move for him. He knows what the approach to the Mur de Puy is like. He knows how important it is, and he knows it's all about positioning. And what a team he's got to look after, because not only does he have Matteo Tossato, but also Peter Sagan, and it may well be that they'll turn the tables around today, and Alberto Contador might try and get the stage victory for Peter Sagan, because in the back of my mind I've got a gut feeling that Sagan is going to get himself up this climb in a good position.
He's a strong man, and the situation has changed now. Remember, we were racing flat out to the foot of the Côte de Boniceau, and they were very nervous. There's a touch of wheels by 2 riders. Started the ricochet effect. We don't know what caused the second crash. We never saw any images of the second crash. Everybody was blocked by the first crash. 22.8 kilometers to go. Tinkoff Saxo are now, Saxo Tinkoff rather, now taken over the race situation here. The Chateau de Modave. Let's bring it down to another level, Paul. Tell us all about this.
Chateau de Modave, well, that is a 450-hectare natural reserve. The Modave family owned the lands around here way back to the 13th century when there was a fortress, and one of the oldest parts of the chateau dates back to the 13th century.
Well, there is the farm alongside it there, the Castle Farm, which was also started back in the 17th century as well.
By the way, Phil, just above one of the great doors heading in there is the motto, which reads "On y soit qui mal y pense," and I'm sure you've heard of that before.
I have. What do you mean?
Well, it's the Queen's motto, the motto of the royal family.
Yeah. Well, they've got back into the action now, and I must say they pulled themselves round, because the big riders, the big teams in this race have seen an advantage now to try and race towards the top of the Puy, snatch those 10-second bonus for the first man over the line. There's 6 and 4 for the next 2. It can alter the overall. Chris Froome's Sky team right in the centre, easy to pick out in those black jerseys and blue racing helmets. This is the man suffering most, the race leader, Cancellara.
And you can see the speed here, really, because the main field stretches out into this very long line. Now, Cancellara is a tough old character, I have to say, and he will do everything he can to try and survive on a day like this, because he will do as much honour as he can to that yellow tunic. He knows how important it is for his team, but it's also important for himself, just not to let that tunic slip away from his shoulders. All he has to do is try and stay in contact with the main field. There are time bonuses available. Once again, 10, 6 and 4 for the first 3 riders to cross the line. Peter Sagan has a little bit of a buffer, a little bit of time to make up. He's looking for 33 seconds on Fabian Cancellara if he wants to take the overall lead. And he's in 4th place at the start of today's stage.
We're looking at the peloton. Drive, drive, drive is the motto of the day now, and there's no slowing this race down. We're pushing up to 60 kilometers an hour, Paul.
Yeah, well, different coloured jerseys coming to the front now. That lime green jersey of Cannondale Garmin, that is the team of Dan Martin. Dan Martin is quite an expert at these hilltop finishes, and he will be looking to position himself nicely before the next climb of the day, because I think the important part of this next few kilometres, as we go under 20 kilometres to go, it's all about positioning.
20 kilometres to go now. Well, there's no doubt that Alberto Contador, they've been counting themselves the luckiest team. They had no fallers in that crash. I don't think Cannondale Garmin did either, but this is a shame. The speed has really cracked Fabian Cancellara. He's injured again, the yellow jersey. He goes under 20 kilometres, losing time now. He'll be losing at the yellow jersey tonight, and really we have to say, to no fault of lack of strength, poor old Fabian Cancellara in trouble as he freewheels to the right. On the Côte d'Aref now, Paul, this is the riders themselves said it may only be a fourth category, but it is hard.
Very hard indeed, and the top of it is at 10 miles to go, 16.5 kilometres. I think they're more concerned about the final climb before the Mur de Vie, the Côte de Chirac, but as you can see how narrow these roads are, it's so important to be well placed. Luke Durbridge is sitting in the middle there for Orica Green Edge. Michael Kwiatkowski is the rider, the world champion, and further down the road, sad to see the shoulders of Fabian Cancellara bow down in the agony which he must be going through just to try and stay in the race here.
Yes, it looks like Mark Renshaw just in front of him too, and he had a flat tyre when the split came, so he's been relegated as well now. Chris Froome just passing through our picture in the black right at the front there, looking pretty cool, calm and collected. There's Quintana on the far side, he's still in this group. Peter Sagan with the red across his jersey there. Now we are hearing, I don't know whether you could hear that, but I heard somebody in the motorbike shout attack on the left. And the green jersey is going off here, and there's the attack that's just come.
Well, at the back end of the race, there is a rider, Vandre Greipel, is being left behind. Now, all of a sudden, there's a little move. Now, this is a very important move to go clear on the Côte de l'Aref, because there's a 1 point available for the first rider to go over the top of this climb. A lot of guys, Mark Cavendish going backwards there on the left-hand side. They're just looking at the damage being done at the back end of the main field. 124 slipping away, Johan Genet of Europcar. Cavendish, fourth on the race yesterday. Fabian Cancellara. Very, very difficult day for Cancellara now. Well, Angelo Tulic, the French rider from Europcar, is in the lead. We're looking at the front end of the main field here at 17 kilometres to go. There is one rider in front of the peloton at around about 15 seconds, and that is the Europcar rider, Angelo Tulic. But we can see all the main contenders. There's JC, Jean-Christophe Perrault in the AG2R jersey there in the brownish shorts, and this is the lone leader. Now, once he gets over the top of this climb, he's got a very good chance of getting himself the single point. There are 2 points available. There's 1 point available over the next climb of the day, the Côte de Chirac, and 2 points available over the top of the Mur de Huy. That's a third category climb. Up towards the top, and it was Team Sky trying to take the responsibility of the chasing. There's a chance there to see, of course, the beautiful Belgian blue cows over to the right-hand side. This is pretty much the home of the Belgian blue, and this is Team Sky. Geraint Thomas over on the left-hand side. Chris Froome up into third position. Alberto Contador got all of his teammates around him. That's Geraint Thomas, and now slipping away here, number 144. And that is Stein de Volder, starting this Tour de France for the first time in more than 5 years. Just looking to see who else has been caught down here. Number 81, John Degenkolb. Declan Cole, watch out for him once the race gets a little bit further down, because he's one of the top sprinters in the Tour de France this year, but he's a man who can survive over the top of the climb. The yellow jersey is 1.5 minutes behind as we go over the top of the Côte d'Eref. Froome over on the right-hand side's got plenty of teammates up alongside him. TJ Van Garderen in there as well for the BMC squad, and still keeping himself up at the front. The red and white jerseys looking after the rider from Katusha, that is Rodriguez. He's got the bandage on his elbow, just to the left. And Nasser Bouhanni, the big sprinter, he's also nursing injuries from an accident that he had in the French National Championships just 1 week before the start of the Tour de France, crashing inside of the last 200 or 300 metres. There's TJ Van Garderen in the middle with the white sunglasses. Peter Kenyon comes forward now in the white jersey over the top of the climber. We're now dropping down into the small town of Marchand. Well, 143.
Okay, so that's good. Let's see if anybody
to see what the situation is
give
there.
me a suggestion of the next route.
And Fabian Cancellara, I'm sure he would have done
And
a
if we
lot better
haven't,
than this if he hadn't had that accident.
I will do.
Cancellara, his hand on his hip there. He knows now he's just got to pedal his last 14 kilometres. The yellow jersey will be going elsewhere tonight. Michael Shaw here was the first man over the top. I didn't think he looked like Michael Shaw to me.
No, I think there's a little mistake there, because as far as I'm concerned, it was the Europe car rider went over the top. So let's ignore the graphic on this occasion.
So it was Angelo Tulik, yeah.
Yeah. Fabian Cancellara, though, Phil is trying to find